The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and by unorganized we mean the reserves and any citizens that would like to form militia groups. And it wasn't always that way, actually. Partly that was Congress's doing, actually, back in, I believe, 1949 or something like that. In the early 1900s, they broke it into two groups.
And why do the citizens of Massachusetts need a militia?
Well, in particular, the citizens of Massachusetts need a militia because of the tyranny that exists in our government. Most people, as you know, are pretty well brainwashed, and they fear the government. You know, they fear the IRS, they fear their property being taken from them. And the oppression has happened over a long period of time through a process known as gradualism. You know, a little bit here, a little bit there. The undermining of the Constitution has a lot to do with it.
Are there any specific instances you want to bring to the public's attention?
Well, let's just look at that a little deeper. The Constitution itself, our rights, constitutional rights have eroded incredibly. Ignorance of the Constitution, for instance. Some people actually believe that a statement that Karl Marx made is American thought or American documentation. It's pretty sad, actually.
A lot of the Communist Manifesto was implemented by the Democrats when they were in power. We have a progressive income tax. We have ridiculous taxes on estates.
Centralized banking system.
Centralized banking system. Centralized a lot of things out of Washington. But what's the militia going to do to change all this, if anything?
Well, there's one thing that the government fears, and I like to look at it this way. There's really only one right. The rest are all just words on paper, and that's the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. If you stop and think about law, what is law without the teeth behind it? In other words, by the teeth I mean the police, in particular the police, and the military, the misuse of the military. I should qualify that, specify the misuse of the military.
Well, they want to take away the right to have an assault weapon. The
Right.
interesting thing that was on television the other day, I saw the mayor of New York was upset because a foreign immigrant who went to the top of the Empire State Building and started shooting up the place, and he went on TV and he mentioned that the reason why this happened is because Florida has a liberal gun law. Liberal in a nice sort of way. From your point of view, anyone can go into a gun shop in Florida and just buy a semi-automatic machine pistol without any kind of special license. It's a driver's license. You don't need any type of permit. So this guy, he brought his gun up to New York and did his thing, and Mayor Giuliani basically told Florida, you ought to change your gun laws. What do you think of that?
I know it. Again, if there had been some armed citizens there on the spot, they might have been able to turn the table around,
Throughout history, I think you have a point there that unarmed citizens have been victims. Black people in Africa, if they were armed, they wouldn't have been slaves. They wouldn't have been targets for slave catchers. If Jews in Europe in the 1930s had guns, many of them might still be alive today who aren't. So I think free people should have guns. If they don't have guns, they're at the mercy of other people, whether they're benevolent protectors or malevolent forces.
I like the way one man put it. He said, an armed society is a polite society.
Yeah, that's good. So as a militia leader, how do you intend to build your organization here in Massachusetts?
Well, that's a good question, Dave, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight. As you know, getting the message out is crucial, and I'm very limited right now in resources to do that. And I really appreciate being here tonight.
Well, we'll certainly give you your chance to be heard. We people from the other side of the spectrum, gun control advocates. We've invited several politicians who advocate gun control and invited them to be in the show. None of them ever show up. because I guess they think this is a hostile environment or something. But we really give people a chance to give their view. But in any event, are you going to have like martial arts courses or
Sure.
riflery classes or pistol
Absolutely.
shooting?
Absolutely.
You're going to have all these things.
Absolutely.
And
Also, most people are under the impression that militias are guns and maneuvers and what have you, but I see it that it's more than that, that it's exchange of information, you know, alternative information, you know.
well, that's what we are here,
underground
alternative information.
whatever.
Yeah. Are you now? A lot of the militia groups that I've gotten literature from or spoken to, they're convinced the United States is at risk of invasion from the United Nations or other countries.
We've already been invaded by the United Nations in 1945.
Well, they just built a skyscraper in New York that's done a lot of questionable things. But do you actually think that there is going to be conflict between American troops and foreign soldiers?
No question about it. No question.
Now, how do you see this happening?
Well, again, I mentioned the word gradualism earlier, and I think I'm thinking right now of a CFR member who said that they would erode our national sovereignty piece by piece by doing an end round around our national sovereignty.
The CFR meaning?
The Council of Foreign Relations, yes.
Okay, and that is basically what people said is an elite think tank kind of group that helps make foreign policy decisions.
Supposedly.
Yeah. How did you get involved in this movement?
Well, I guess it was a series of events that happened in my life to bring me to this position. And it's not just, I do have a lot of anger, I'll be honest with you, but it's not just based on anger. There's integrity involved. I love my freedom, and I think most people do love their freedom. Unfortunately, people aren't really awake to the fact that we're losing our freedom every day, more and more, and something needs to be done about it. And one person once said that the pen is mightier than the sword, and I honestly believe that, Dave. But to be honest with you, America's pens have all run out of ink, I believe, you know, or it's getting close to that. And you know, sometimes the sword is a last resort, you know.
Well, we have a free press in this country. I mean, freedom. Whoever owns the press can do it. We have the internet, which is a great opportunity to get any point of view you want. You can read it or express it on the internet. There are fax networks. There's community access cable TV where radical extremists like me can. I've been putting this show on for 10 years without any molestation by anybody, and we have a good audience, and no one bothers us for doing it. So there are opportunities. Of course, we have a government. Well, what do you think? What's going to happen in your view? Where do you think the Clinton administration is going?
Where do I think it's going? Well, I just happen to have a piece of literature here. He's doing a good job of confiscating guns and eroding our constitutional rights. He is a quintessential socialist himself. You know, it's amazing that he even got in office. You know, at a certain point in our history, you couldn't get in office if you, unless you were a veteran, and of course, Vietnam comes into play here. And after Vietnam, you couldn't get in office if you were a veteran. And Clinton, at one point in our history, could have never gotten office, but the times have changed, you know, and here we have him as president. And Bush was no better. In fact, we haven't had a good president since Grover Cleveland, actually. You know.